For all the wrong reasons, this show managed to grab the summer spotlight. The Acolyte is the latest Disney Plus Star Wars show to air after it was announced in Star Wars Celebration in 2022. The show mainly got its traction when it was released. The director is Leslie Headland, who was a former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein. This was cause for concern as we wondered how someone like that close to a person like that could end up in a position like this. Flatly, there wasn't any evidence to support that she knew about any of his wrongdoings, but she wouldn't stay out of the news. She would almost nonchalantly talk about the Jedi being painted in a not so good light in this series, and how we would see a Sith side of the story. More controversy about this show being the gayest Star Wars show ever, and R2-D2 being a lesbian, as well as one of our lead actors saying that Anakin blew up the Death Star in a very excited and confident manner. Either he was pretending to be a Star Wars fan, or flatly he just got his two movies mixed up. As the first two episodes would build our world around Mae, who was our antagonist, as she pops a Jedi straight off the bat in the first scene, two characters we knew completely nothing about, and now one of them is dead. The Jedi then arrest Osha, Mae's twin sister, thinking it was her who committed the crime, thanks to an eyewitness. Osha used to be a Jedi, but since left the Order and is now a mechanic, or a mechnic. The main plot of these first two episodes is that everyone thought Mae was dead. One thing I noticed about this show is that the Jedi kind of operate like cops. When Mae is attacking Indara in the first episode, she tells Indara that she knows the Jedi can only use their weapons when they're ready to kill. Almost like the Jedi are supposed to operate by a strict set of rules, and Mae is using that to her advantage almost. Later, we are introduced to Yord, who is the one arresting Osha. At that point, Osha makes a quick move towards Tool, and Yord puts his hand over his saber, like he's ready to unholster it. Yord is very by the books, almost Boy Scoutish, and he knew Osha from when they were both Padawans, but that doesn't stop him from arresting her. But Osha's ship crashes in transit, and we're introduced to Sol, who is Osha's former master. So Yord, Sol, and their Padawan Jeki set out to find Osha and bring her back. Sol doesn't believe Osha could have committed these crimes, and for some reason has a sense of vulnerability for her. Sol and company find Osha, and he promises to find out the truth for her. Meanwhile, Mae is ordered by her dark side master, Smilo Ren, to go kill more Jedi. She heads to this old temple to murder a Jedi who's floating in some sort of invisible force field. This is where they start to lose Mae. She can't get through to kill him, so she buys a poison. He kills after seeing her face. It's a solid half of an episode's runtime to get this dude to unalive himself for no good reason. Sol and the rest go to track Mae down, but instead run to the guy who sold her the poison. Mr. Brewmaster is of no help at all, as the Jedi play good cop, bad cop, and ultimately get nothing done. Sol later finds Mae, and they get into a wicked kung fu match until she escapes, coming face to face with Osha, as they both thought the other was dead. And you could clearly see here by their facial expressions how internally conflicted they are to see each other for the first time in 16 years. Osha holds up her stun gun and misses on purpose. This is a stun gun, girl. It isn't gonna kill her. Stun her and link up with your sister afterwards. Find out why she's going around murdering Jedi. We have been introduced to a lot of characters that we know nothing about in these first two episodes, and honestly, the third episode doesn't really help with that at all. In my opinion, the third episode could have been the first episode, and I say that because nothing crazy is revealed that would have spoiled the first two episodes. We see Indara, Kalnaka, Sol, and Torben from 16 years ago as they come about Osha and Mae's civilization. Torben is revealed to be the floating Jedi who unalived himself in the episode prior. These witches that Mae and Osha live with are strong with the Force, so strong that they created Osha and Mae seemingly from thin air. The witches' mothers talk about the Jedi as if they were going to stop them from continuing to practice the Force, but in reality the Jedi aren't too interested in that. They're here to see if the children are fit to be Jedi with the permission of the mothers. Osha wants to go, but Mae doesn't. Mae is so persistent on her sister not going, she accidentally burns down the entire coven. The witches performed a ceremony on Mae that left her with a scar on her forehead. Whatever they did to her obviously impacted her with dark magic, because she is now evil and twisted. Osha is nearly about to die, but Sol saves her, and this is just hours after the Jedi left, so why is Sol still at the coven? We'll get back to that later. That is all we would get for the next few episodes as the mystery goes. Mae is hunting the 4 Jedi who visited her coven because we're not sure yet. Indara and Torben's death come in strange and confusing moments because we aren't getting any context clues whatsoever as what they could have done. We also never really knew who they were before they died either, so there's that. I have a feeling this mystery was meant to be clever, but comes off as kind of confusing. It seems the mystery is so simple that even the slightest clue would give it away, so we get no clues essentially. Vanestra Rao, who's another Jedi, who sent Sol to look for Osha in episode 1, kind of acts as their captain and informs him that they lost contact with Kalnaka on this planet named Kofar. So Sol and a team must go track down Kalnaka before Mae gets to him first. My biggest takeaway from this episode is that Vanestra, with a secret committee, refuses to tell the High Council, which Yoda would be on at this time, that someone is going around murdering Jedi. They're afraid of this getting back to the Senate and exposing the Jedi as weak, and maybe would lead to an internal investigation. You know, how like a corrupt police chief and mayor might lie about crime stats to stay in power. I see what you did there, Leslie, keeping up with the theme. However, Mae has a change of heart in this next episode. Now knowing her sister is alive, she decides to turn herself into the Jedi and defy her master. She ties up the brewmaster and heads to the Jedi. Mae stumbles upon Kalnaka's hut before the Jedi get there and find him dead. The Jedi swiftly run up to the hut and demand Mae come out with her hands up, or else they're gonna shoot. I don't actually say that part. Osha, a few feet away, has a dark side user fly upon her like Superman. He is revealed to be Smilo Ren and flings Osha into the woods. The Jedi charge and Smilo Ren force pushes them all away, ensuing a battle. Most of the Jedi are diced up by Smilo Ren in the first few minutes. He's using this Cortosis helmet and gauntlet that powers down lightsabers upon contact, so most of the Jedi don't stand a chance. Sol's able to go one-on-one with him and orders Yord to take Osha back to the ship. Meanwhile, Mae is trying to escape and Jeki finds her and tries to Mirandize her.
You're under arrest for the murder of Master Indara, the murder of...
Mae fights back as she doesn't want to be arrested, but I thought she was going to turn herself into the Jedi anyways, like an hour ago. Smilo Ren catches up to Jeki, who's almost taunting Mae, who sits idly in the background. He exclaims that Jeki is a good, loyal Padawan, unlike Mae. Sol swiftly joins into the fight, and the two battle Smilo. Smilo's advanced tactics delay Sol as Jeki dives in just to be killed. The Sith is revealed to be the Brewmaster guy, otherwise known as Kamir or the Stranger. He seems to know something about Sol, consistently questioning his morality and motivations and the guilt he might be feeling. This is just another mystery in which we get very little clues towards. Yord, remember him? Yeah, Osha convinces him to go back to try to help Sol. Now, Yord should have just gone back to the ship and sent out a distress call. He just watched Bro cut down like 7 Jedi and definitely use some help. But this show doesn't have any logic, so Yord comes back and pays his price. Sol just idly standing by as he is now the last remaining Jedi. He goes to finish Kamir, disarming him and holding a blade up to his throat. But then Osha reminds him the Jedi don't kill the unarmed. Give me a break. Rightfully so, Kamir makes fun of them for always following these rules. This makes no sense. Dude cut down a bunch of Jedi and is clearly a threat to peace. I don't understand how giving him a chance to fight back helps Sol's morality code. You should be able to kill someone who just killed a bunch of your friends and is trying to take you down as well. Osha puts a flashlight on Kamir's back when he continues to taunt Sol, and bugs come and carry him away. What the fuck, so you were trying to kill him? Osha is confused and asks what Kamir was talking about. Mae stuns Sol as he is trying to explain what is happening to Osha, so again, no information. Mae and Osha reconnect for all about 5 seconds until Mae knocks her out for not joining her in the dark side and betraying her, and steals her clothes and cuts off her hair. Mae, posing as Osha, goes to Sol and they head back to the ship, and Kamir stumbles upon Osha, taking her with him. Apparently, this was supposed to be some sort of peak episode. This episode reminded me a lot of Shadow Warrior from Ahsoka. In that case, nostalgia carried the episode. Meanwhile, this episode is full of shock value and a battle that takes place almost over the entire episode. Both episodes look great on the surface, but ultimately have little plot significance. In fact, it just makes our characters feel dumb. Motivations flip all over the place. Mae was going to turn herself in, then stun Sol is now posing as her sister to do what exactly? Osha ends up on a remote, unknown planet with Kamir, where she is seduced by both of his lightsabers while preaching freedom and power to her. Motivations that don't really make sense for Osha's character. What does she need freedom from? Her character is not oppressed in this show. She has no lust or need for overwhelming power. She's working as a mechanic and seemed to have a fine life. She's not living with the consequences of any of her actions. For Osha's motivations to make more sense, I would have loved to see her character truly struggle before the Jedi arrested her. Show her unable to take care of her friends or someone that she cares about because the powers that are around her were making it too hard for her and her friends to live. Maybe that would have allowed us to understand why she'd want power and freedom instead of this weird fan fiction romance implied. Kamir, with his sexual presence, dominates pretty much the entire episode. Nothing says true love like murdering your friends in front of you. That brings us to episode 7, a flashback episode that is half copy and paste from episode 3. And I mean, these scenes are exactly the same. Some have different camera angles, but overall we learned nothing new. This episode had a 44-minute runtime, and I figured they'd find a way to let us down. We see Sol's POV as he exclaims, almost begging Indara, that he felt a connection with Osha when they were testing her, and he wants to bring her back to the Coruscant to the Jedi Council to see if they'll approve her training. The only new information we got was a needless, probably expensive fight between the Jedi. But again, this didn't add much to the plot at all. We already knew all these characters were going to survive another 16 years, and most of them would remain friends. The only casualty is Torben's mind, as he was seduced and honestly assaulted by this witch mother in the shadow realm she brought his mind to. It's a cool concept to be able to bring someone's mind to a different reality, but ultimately the whole point is that the mother tells Torben he can go home, while sexually feeling him up. The whole point of this episode is that Torben wants to go home, and he thinks taking the girls, Mae and Osha, is the key to go back to Coruscant. I just realized this dude offs himself in 2 different shows. This leads to the Jedi once again pleading with the Mother Witch to let Mae and Osha go. She then proceeds to turn into a demon, and Sol quickly reacts and kills her, as we saw her attempting to disintegrate Mae. Mother Witch in her dying breaths tells Sol she was gonna let her children go. What? Start out with that next time before you turn into a smoke monster. You've already shown your willingness to fuck with Jedi's minds. You're performing dark magic and you turn into a smoke monster as a child appears to be in danger. This is supposed to be some sort of moral quandary for Sol, additionally as he saves Osha over Mae as the fortress is burning down. If you remember in episode 3, Mae set fire to the damn place. Again, this is supposed to be some big reveal that Sol is morally flawed, but I don't find it that way. There's been some criticism that Sol could have force lifted both the girls off the bridge, but honestly, that's not the part that bothers me. I don't see anything wrong with having to make a choice. If you can only save one of the girls, it makes sense that Sol would want to save Osha, the one he was connected to. The 4 Jedi decide to lie to the council before Osha wakes up and also plan to lie to her. Sol wants to confess about his supposed crime, but Indara warns him he'll be kicked out of the order. Indara tells Sol and the rest to lie for the benefit of Osha. As far as everyone knows, Mae set a fire that killed the entire witch coven and burnt it all down. Now to the finale. Sol figured out that Mae was posing as Osha and cuffs her. He begins his confession about that night 16 years ago, but Mae escapes him and tases him. Sol tries to chase her down in his ship, but this fucker Basil destroys the ship. Why? Sol follows Mae to the old witch coven as Kamir and Osha also depart for there as well. Osha telling Kamir she just wants her sister back and that she doesn't want to join the dark side. Sol and Kamir ensue in a pretty decent lightsaber fight in the old witch coven. I gotta tell you though, the acting between these two really carries this entire show. Both are swift and passionate, and you can really feel the animosity they have towards each other. Sol beats Kamir again, but right before he can kill him, Mae steals his saber and demands Sol confesses to the murder of their mother that really wasn't a murder. Sol confesses with Osha overhearing, and she fucking force chokes him to death. Are you kidding me? This is how Sol ends? There is no rhyme or reason to Sol being this hateful to a man who has tried to protect her and raise her for most of her life. There is not a buildup of hate inside of Osha for her to reasonably snap like this. Also, Amanda Stenberg is not a good actress. Her facial expressions have been bland and overall non-compelling for the entire show. The worst part is she isn't even the worst actor in the show. This guy is. Leslie, why are you writing Jedi like little bitches? This secretary has no self-esteem whatsoever. He operates like an intern and he's just waiting for the clock to hit 5 so he can go home and prepare for his morning coffee run. I thought The Bad Batch left us with more questions than answers, but this show left me more confused than inquisitive. The motivations of all of our characters are all over the place. Sol is the only character who feels like a Jedi, or a person of that matter. He's the only complex and nuanced person in this entire show. His sins are so minor because it never really feels like it affects anyone besides Torben. And he's also mind-fucked, so there was that. Osha was happy before she got arrested. She wasn't in a depressive or naive state because her family died. Osha leaves with Kamir as we get a silhouette wide shot of them holding hands. Is this supposed to be a happy ending? Are we supposed to root for these guys? They are murderers and Sith. They embrace evil, selfishness, and hate. Meanwhile, Vanestra, who sucks the life out of every room she's in, blames Sol for all the Jedi murders and states it to the Senate. Why would she help the Sith? She knows they're alive. She knows her old pupil is dark and evil. How does blaming Sol help anybody? Plus, aren't there witnesses that saw Mae or Osha commit the crimes in like episode 1? Sol moved on to train Jeki and continued to work at the Jedi Order. Who knows what Indara was doing, but she seemed like she was mentally and morally coherent. Mae is mad that the Jedi killed her mother and is twisted by the dark side. Now that makes sense, but she goes between wanting to be a good person and wanting revenge so easily. Kamir is intriguing, but his motivations are also counterproductive. He succeeds at making Mae scared of him, and that's the dark side apprentices should feel about their master. But he gives up on her nonetheless. Then he helps by wiping her mind? Dude, pick a lane with this girl. Overall, 3 out of 10 show, carried by some great acting from Lee Jean-Jae and Manny Jacinto. The lore breaking could be its own video, but to flatly sum it up, Leslie has made everybody dumb. All the Sith Jedi and civilians are incompetent. There's no complexity or nuance to any of these characters, including and especially Mae and Osha. There isn't a clever mystery. Instead, it's more of a confusing, misleading, underdeveloped show that misused its runtime. All the episodes felt incomplete and ended at awkward times. I never saw them as cliffhangers, but saw them as unfinished episodes. I never felt like one of those episodes really made me want to watch the next one. It's like Leslie told her editors, alright, it's time to wrap it up. The Jedi didn't lose the Republic in the prequels because they were dumb, useless, and incompetent. They lost the most powerful being in the universe, taking decades to worm his way through. The failure of the Jedi isn't about blatant corruption and low IQ decision making. It's about being so sure you won't fail, you don't prepare for it. They didn't prepare for the Sith's return because there was no evidence of them returning, so they got too sure of themselves. If anything, their flaw is that they're cocky. And even then, it took thousands of years for them to fall. Unsurprisingly, this show is canceled and will not be renewed for a season 2. I will make a video breaking down why these shows seem to be failing and not being renewed. This is the first one that is openly canceled. Obi-Wan Book of Boba Fett have kind of been left in the air as whether or not they'll have a second season. But this show has been fully canceled, which is an odd turn considering the recent precedent they've set with Disney Plus original shows. Let me know what you think and the directions of the live action shows and how they've been heading. Also, shout out to Plagueis and Yoda for making time for a guest appearance. You both added nothing but fan service. Thanks for watching. Talk to y'all next time.